Hi, my name is Dr. Evelyn. I'm a Jawad trained teacher and also a tutor on the accredited Jawad belly dance training courses. This video is all about the technique for vertical figures of 8 going down, or also by some called Mayas. So our hips can do figures of 8 in all sorts of spaces, but this one is the vertical one. So you have to imagine if you had pens on your hip bones and you were standing up against the wall, you'd be drawing a figure of 8 vertically on the wall in front of you. In order to do that, we really have to engage our pelvic floor and our lower abs to make sure that our tailbone is melting down as much as we possibly can. We have to do this anyway in standard belly dance posture, but I find for this move in particular, this is very important. You can always try standing up against a mirror to see whether you can do the move while still engaging and keeping your back as long as possible. Bearing in mind that everyone's back is slightly different, the curvature is slightly different, so you won't touch with every single vertebrae. But if you've got your posture bang on there, you should be relatively aligned with the mirror, feeling the mirror all the way down, and you're able to do your vertical figure of 8. Now, what do we actually do? Making sure that your feet are about hip width apart, or if you like, 2 wristfuls in there. Your hip bones are the bony bits here, your knees should be somewhere underneath those, and your ankles underneath your knees. We want to tuck under, then we want to lift one hip up, basically pulling it up. The heel can come up if you like, come off, and then we're going to push it out and away from ourselves. Now this is basically a bit like a hip slide, pushing it out, so making sure we're tucked under. We then need to curve it in so that when the foot actually lands back on the floor flat, hip, knee and ankle are aligned again. Same on the other side, lifting up, using your oblique muscles to lift that hip bone up and pushing out to the side, using your core to stabilize yourself and pushing the foot down in the floor. From the back, it looks like this. Lifting up with your obliques, pushing out, again using your abdominal muscles, and letting the hip come down. So you're making a circle, if you like, just on your hip bone here. If you're not sure you've got it, put your hands onto the bony bit. That's your hip bone. We don't care what else you're carrying here. This is where the move comes. Up, out, and down. This is just the one side. So as this one comes down, it is further down than the other hip bone and your knee slightly bent. So we can shift our weight, lift the other hip higher, push it out to the side and place that one down. Now the other leg has straightened, this is bent, so the hips again are at different levels. Up, out and down, up, out and down. Each hip creating a circle that goes from the top and down and crossing in the middle, if you like, to create your vertical figure of 8. Once you feel comfortable, you can take your hands off your hip bones. But this is really one of the moves that I believe is very important to feel. So make sure you've got your basic technique before you let go. It'll also tell you whether you let go of your pelvis as you circle down. Making sure you're in, meaning that your hip bones here are kind of pointing up into your rib cage. If you let go, they'll point slightly forwards. Again, you might feel a bit of a strain on your lower back as you try and do a vertical figure of 8 like this. So check and then correct your posture. Go into a nice, relatively straight back, using your pelvic floor and your lower abs to keep it there, and we can do the vertical figure of 8, or a Maya, called so I believe because you're making an M on your hips. You don't need to take your heels off the floor, but most people prefer this. If you want to keep your heels on the floor, you just need to use your knees more and also your oblique muscles. So we can do the same vertical figure of 8 by not taking the heels off. If the move still has to be nice and big, we have to allow the knees to take a lot of movement here. You can also use your glutes to power this move. The upper half is isolated. We try not to have any movement there. So staying nice and lifted from your rib cage will allow that your hips can move effortlessly underneath. Let's try having a bit of a play with that. Let's get some music. Engaging your lower abs, making sure your hip bones aligned, and lifting up, pushing the hip out and down, out and down, out and down. Keep the heels on the floor. As your confidence with this grows, you can actually lift your foot off the floor as your hip bones creating that circle. That enables you to travel with it in any direction that you want. Now the arms can just frame the move. So we can keep the hands here, by some also called penguin arms. We can have a bit more of a vintage style going on, keeping the arms across the chest. Some also call this dead pharaoh. But we could also have the arms moving. And that's vertical figures of 8 down, or also Mayas. Thank you very much for watching.